And welcome everyone to the Shitlord Preachers podcast. This is episode 20.
Woohoo! We made it.
We made it halfway through the year. We hit 20.
We hit 20. We would like to thank all the little people we stepped on to get where we are today.
Exactly. Welcome everyone. So my name is Amos Joseph. I'm joined by my friend Brook Potter, who is in the UK. Quick little thing. Basically, Shitlord Preachers, we're a channel that is where Brook and I talk about social, political, cultural issues. And we both used to be preachers, and now we're preachers and shitlords, I guess. It's funny the stuff that we found in churches among Christians and whatnot, and we find the same thing in politics and so on.
Right.
So, like I said, my name is Amos Joseph. I'm actually here in Minnesota, joined by Brook Potter in the UK. Introduce yourself, Brook.
Hey guys, I do apologize. It is entering to be summer in the UK, so there's a lot of light behind me. Not much I could do. Hopefully, in a couple hours or minutes, it'll start raining, as this is London, and you might be able to see me a bit better. But yes, as my good friend Amos said, I am Brook Potter, originally from the Twin Island nation of Trinidad and Tobago. I moved out to the UK about 2 years ago, and I've just been living the London life, enjoying myself. Amos and I have been very good friends, practically family for a good few years now, and we've shared a lot of these great conversations about social issues and politics and movies and SJW, ass cancer, and other things. And we just felt that this was the kind of thing that we'd like to share. And we've met some great people through this podcast. We've made some great friends, and we look forward to another 20, at least another 20, right? Hopefully this year.
Looking at what's going on with YouTube, let's just hope we don't end up. Let's watch it. If anyone sponsors us, we got to be careful about that, and then we just don't get too edgy.
Yeah, but I mean that sucks.
Right? I know.
Oh man. I mean, for anybody who doesn't know, like a lot of people on YouTube are, they're going through a crunch right now. Amos informed me of Bearing, a very popular guy out in Australia. His channel just got taken down. I know of a few other people who have also had their channels. It looks like censored at least, and a lot of people are moving over to like BitChute and Twitch and these other platforms. I don't know how we'd work on Twitch, man. Maybe we could look at that or something,
Exactly. And this podcast is brought to you. I'm just kidding.
Are you gonna advertise some CBD oil?
Oh shit, we're taken down. Yep.
We demonetized.
We're done. Well, I wasn't even monetized to begin with. So a couple things we wanted to talk about. I know we've been gone a couple weeks now. We had the last one. We had Chris from Think Liberty on. I was trying to see if we could pull off some like big streaming event with 20, but I thought, 20 is not that much. Maybe when we get to 100, we'll see what happens.
Right. What were we trying to get? We were trying to steal a guest from Hapa Supremacy, not to give away too much.
We were. That didn't. I mean, I messaged
what
him.
Happened?
I messaged him and he read it, and that was it. So I think just anyone popping up, on his feed saying, "Hey, come on my stream," is probably very typical. So,
right. But I mean, he knows you to some degree, so
yeah, there's been interactions. But we're trying to get guests. I know we've had some people sort of on reserve that I could just say, "Hey, come on the stream." We could always do a couple that we really like to repeat. I've been participating quite a bit with Sarcasm and Liberties streams. Last night we were on talking about immigration.
Awesome.
Which got into talking about demographics and human nature and tribalism.
Good stuff.
Oh yeah, and I had to keep constantly clarifying that I'm not alt-right.
I mean, you're half alt-right, aren't you? Just
that's what people are saying now.
That's the whole Hapa Supremacy.
I am a
ethno state.
I am a 30-year-old incel white supremacist, Hapa supremacist, virgin, 30 years old, living in my parents' basement.
Right.
The whole thing.
Well, I know you, Amos, so I know that's a lot of shit right there. So
Yeah. It's
Oh,
just,
another big milestone, bro. Congratulations on your Twitter following account.
100, I hit 100 and now I'm at 150. So
I was about to say 150. Congratulations. I don't even know what mine is at, but that's great.
you're never on Twitter.
I mean, I post, an article or something like that. I don't really do very much on Twitter.
Right. Yeah, but definitely been engaged in all that. Let's just say I've come onto some radars with my Twitter account, and I don't know. Some people in the Hoppa group have already had hit pieces written about them.
Really? On like the Reddit subreddit sort of thing?
Individuals from the subreddit. There's a whole website. Um, if they start writing something about me, then I'll probably bring it up. But they have a whole website devoted to hit pieces, smear articles about Hapa individuals, Hapa issues, racism, all their theorizing of the fact that, if your father is white and your mother was Asian, well, she's a slave, he's a misogynist, he's a white supremacist. He forces that down onto you. Now you're this product of super racism of some sort, some messed up whatever, and it is just absolute self-loathing to the max.
Right.
Yeah. So
I mean, that it doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, I'm not in the community per se, but why would you hate yourself based on something you got no control over? Okay, your parents hooked up
well,
and
I mean,
they're
white
mixed
guilt.
race. Right, but I mean, it's what, Hapa guilt? I mean,
Well, no, because the theory is the circumstances leading to your birth
uh-huh,
were extremely racist in nature.
right. But that has no bearing on who you are as a person. Like, why would you hate yourself for your parents' issue? I mean, it's very much like the original sin argument, right? It's like,
Well, yeah, but I mean the same is being done with white people now with the whole like, well, because there was some possible distant relative in the past that was maybe a slave owner,
right,
even though 5% of the population at the time were slave owners.
right.
Um,
In the US.
in the US, yeah. It's like only 5% of the time that it was happening.
Yeah.
It was actually, slave owners. And now every white person, 70+% of the population in the US is now connected to those atrocities.
Complicit. Right.
Yeah. So in that same way, now we're a product of a more recent form of racism, which is white men who can't get laid with a white woman, goes to find an Asian woman halfway across the world, brings her back, pops out a few kids, and then spreads his white supremacy through her. So now,
Right.
so it's like if a white man dates a white woman, that's racist because you're now, securing the existence of, alt-right nonsense, 14 words, the whole thing. And but if you mix, still fuck you.
So wait. What about Hapas who are not mixed with white people then? Like, blackers or whatever you call them.
Well,
Because that's a thing now. Is a lot of Asian
Black. That's definitely a thing.
Asian
I
black.
think they pass more as black. I mean, when it's black and Asian, people don't care as much. And Hapa has primarily been the half white, half Asian.
Right. Yeah, I would say that's predominant for sure.
So I haven't seen much about that. I think it's a smaller group that once it gets big enough, it'll have its own SJW phase. So
right.
the majority of the Hapa community is self-loathing, leftist SJW types.
That can't be healthy. This is perpetrated where on Reddit? There's like a subreddit or something.
There's a subreddit that gets a 1.8 million visitors a month.
Wow, that's some horse shit right there.
Because they found out about our Hapa ethno state, which is a joke, the total parody of the ethno state of our streams, and they said, look at these, a bunch of incels, a couple of ugly chicks get together and do a stupid stream and they get 600 views in a couple months, while we, subreddit Happas gets 1.8 million views a month, and we're like, you fucking serious? Like, why? Why? Who cares?
Like, for real.
Like, they're so petty. And we had an individual that literally created multiple alternate accounts commenting on everything we were doing.
On Reddit
on Twitter. He'd comment with one thing, and then we reported that account because it was actually threatening to dox people and do all sorts of stuff. The next day, another account pops up, continuing the conversation.
Jeez. That's crazy.
Yeah. So people, yeah.
I mean, just a quick, a shout out to Shade and Nico. I love what they do. They did a good parody recently about the porn pass in the UK.
Oh, yeah.
Right. I really enjoyed that. I laughed at that a lot. It's like, yeah, it's coming. It's coming. For those who don't know, I don't know what it is. The Conservative Party out here has an issue with pornography, and they're threatening to basically ban all adult websites unless you apply before some kind of judge or tribunal or ministry or whatever to get a porn pass to be able to watch pornography in the UK. It hasn't passed yet, but they've been threatening it for a couple of years. Nobody understands where the fuck this shit is coming from. But
the porn pass. That's
yeah.
For just 10 quid a month, you can get 10 quid a month, you can get the all access porn pass, and it's got it's sponsored all over this big card.
Triple X pass.
It's laminated, and you have to keep it on the lanyard on your person at all times.
Yeah. I mean, eventually, we're going that way where it's going to be some kind of fucking ID card. I mean, even out here, even the regular internet, the work of Roosh. I don't know if too many people know Roosh. Roosh was one of the pioneer guys in the pickup artist realm. So the three R's of the manosphere was Rollo, Royce, and Roosh.
Mm-hmm.
Those are kind of the godfathers of the whole red pill community online. Anyway, Roosh has a website called Return of the Kings. And, it's this kind of hyper masculinity, alpha male, be the best version of yourself, that kind of stuff. The first time I tried to access that website in the UK, it was blocked. Not from my website, but from the ISP, from the server level of the internet was actually banning certain websites from being watched arbitrarily. And it's very fortunate the guy who owns the house and stuff like that, he tried to get onto it, saw it, and actually called up the ISP and be like, what the hell is going on? To take off all these blocks off my internet, and it freed up. But that kind of stuff is going on out here without people's knowledge. It's the default. A lot of these things are not accessible. So yeah, that's what you get for not having freedom of speech and other things.
On one end, and this is what kind of we were talking about, I can understand why the government would ban porn, but I don't support the fact that they do.
Yeah, and it's going to do nothing. It's going to push it all underground.
Oh, yeah. Like something as taboo as a topic to talk about in society, and they want to ban it. Yeah, people, I can understand why a government would want to do that. It's still wrong. Correct. We talked about we had our guest Mining Freedom on, where we talked about Germany and regarding their speech laws and their attitudes towards talking about certain World War II individuals and events, and and it's as wrong and as against free speech as all that is, I can understand. Yeah, when you're the country that did all that shit and you want to keep it quiet, it's not justified, but it's somewhat of an understandable reaction. Now I hope at some point they get their act together and become more free. But in the meantime, if they're doing what they're doing, we even there's certain topics that you even see in history books in U.S. schools that are talked about very differently instead of more. It wasn't until recently that not to get into all white guilt, but people have been able in the history class talk more about American history in a more objective manner to be like, hey, shit happened, Native Americans killed, and all this and that and the other, instead of kind of like, we just came here and we just, settled.
Right.
Now,
Right.
but you don't want to go the other way where it's literally like, we're a bunch of conquerors and colonizers,
Yeah, it's not like the Native Americans were exactly living in peace. I mean,
Well, yeah.
anyway, that's another stuff. But it's different. It's different when you're talking about the Nazi salute, the Holocaust denial, other things are illegal in Germany.
Oh yeah. I mean, there's
that's
different countries approach it differently.
Yeah. Where you're talking about not being able to watch something that, right? That's very different. And I mean, it's pornography, man. It's not like, bomb making or, some other kind of, nonsense.
But even that, people got all like, what was that anarchist handbook or whatever?
Yeah, the anarchist cookbook. I mean, that's been going around since the 80s. So,
but I mean, there was a whole bunch of controversy over that. It's like, do we really want to give citizens the ability to just find out how to make bombs? And it's like, well, either you let them, and everyone kind of has a comprehensive understanding of bombs as a matter of just I can find out how to make a bomb, versus you force it underground and you don't know who knows how to or who doesn't know how to make a bomb. And then when a bomb shows up, you couldn't have,
Sure.
Pushing anything underground tends to make it more, I think, more unstable, more dangerous.
Yeah, and more popular. Like there's definitely an attraction, the forbidden fruit syndrome. So if you know it's wrong, people tend to do it. Like, weren't you the one telling me about that camp experiment with a bunch of kids, and the counselor or whoever was stepping away for a minute, and he basically said, "Okay, guys, I'm stepping away. Don't anybody spit in the fire." Was it you that told me this story? No. Okay. Well, so anyway, they set up a camera and stuff like this. This was like a social experiment. And so everybody's around the campfire, they're telling ghost stories, burning marshmallows, whatever the fuck you do at a camp thing in America. And then so the counselor gets up, he's like, "All right, guys, I've got to step away from a guy. Don't anybody spit in the fire." And he walks off. And then suddenly, like, everybody just like one by one got up and started to spit in the fire. And it was kind of a point of at no other campsite was anybody doing that. But the very fact that the authority figure had, made that proclamation and basically made it an issue, he created the very scenario by doing that. Mm-hmm. And that's very much what happens when you outlaw things like, okay, you all had the experiment with prohibition. It created the speakeasies and the underground gin runners and the invention of hot rods, to try and outrun the cops. All of that.
The mafia, the whole thing.
The mafia, yeah,
Al
all
Capone.
of that. There we go. Yeah, Bonnie and Clyde and the whole romanticizing of the criminal element, because everybody was a criminal, right? Everybody's drinking under the table. You've criminalized the entire population, and just worse, So, yeah, I wouldn't do that with pornography, man. I mean, I understand the point. Like, I understand what you're saying. Like, Japan is going to try this. Right? Japan, because of their aging population and the lack of, interaction amongst young people to, basically propagate the species, they want to ban, access to certain pornography, even anime, hentai, and stuff like that. They want to reduce the number of video consoles available in the country because the boys are just sitting playing video games all day. Now this isn't law, but these are like proposals that have come up.
So it's gonna basically force them like to fuck each other.
Yeah. It's basically force fucking, and government sanctioned rape, I suppose, in some with consent. I don't know how that works.
The government is incentivizing actual sex. Say that.
Yeah, which is fine. I think that's a good idea. And if you have like a $5,000 credit for having a kid or whatever, or like a marriage credit, and whatever you incentivize, you'll get more of. Right now, it's very much stacked against that marriage relationship, especially the cost of divorce and the gynocentrism of divorce and stuff like that. So it's not great for men or women, but yeah, this is what they do, man.
So speaking of the I guess the current state of affairs when it is being a man or just being, I guess, a person. I don't
Being
know.
30.
Being 30. There we go. There's our segue we're looking for. So we found this article. Well, it's been talked about for the last week or two here. And that is this 30-year-old millennial individual who has
Is he a
been.
millennial? Yeah, he would
So
be a
so
millennial, yeah.
he's by definition he's a millennial, but he didn't like that word.
Right.
He actually says that. So I quickly Googled this to pull up the article. So here it is. 30-year-old who is evicted by parents says he's not a millennial because he's a conservative. And then
Great.
it's Michael Rotundo, the 30-year-old whose parents resorted to legal action to evict him from their home, is confused about whether he is a millennial.
That's not his biggest issue.
So to be fair, Rotundo is having a hard week.
Yes.
What?
Rightly said.
A New York State Supreme Court judge ruled in his parents' favor on Tuesday, ordering him to vacate the house where he lived rent-free for 8 years. So it seems like he moved back in with them when he was 22, which is understandable to a point.
Sure.
His parents gave him 5 written notices in the last few months and offered to help pay for him to find a new place. But Rotundo said he was owed 6 months notice. The judge disagreed. The story spread like wildfire across social media news, and now Rotundo is trying to figure out his next move. And part of that involved a truly bizarre interview with CNN on Wednesday. And one of the more confusing moments, Rotundo told the network's Brooke Baldwin on Wednesday that everyone blaming millennial entitlement for his situation was wrong. Look at this guy. So he's got this long hair, glasses, the whole neck beard going on, but he's all dressed up because he's on CNN.
Right.
He says, I would say I'm not really a member of that demographic that they're speaking to. I'm a very conservative person. The millennials that they're speaking to are very liberal. Oh, so he's basically saying is, no, I'm not a victim of, millennial entitlement because I'm a conservative. But
right.
I am entitled to 6 months notice of getting kicked out of my parents' house, and I will go to court for this.
How crazy is this? I mean, there's no definition of millennial that says they've got to be liberal, right? Am I right in saying that?
Exactly.
Right.
Millennial, by definition, is just simply the age group.
Right. It's the age group, and the stereotype is they're entitled, living in their parents' basement, not really active in society, kind of thing, right? That's kind of
yeah. It's basically any individual who's, I think they said, who has turned 18, pretty much at the beginning of the 2000s.
Right.
So I mean, it's a very wide group. So you have anyone who's,
so it's like 1982 onwards.
Yeah, anyone born 1982 onwards. I mean, kids now, we're not going to be millennials. That's going to be like, I don't know, that's a whole new generation altogether. But the millennials have just been anyone who has sort of, kind of like me, I'm considered a millennial because I came into adulthood in 2011. Yeah.
Yeah. Just after the noughties.
Right. So there's the kids that remember a world without internet.
right, which aren't very many, but
right, we're that in between sort of the coming into the information digital age.
Sure.
So I mean, I can understand, there's definitely a lot of issues with the entitlement, but the funny thing is pretty much any group that is in that range, like when I turn 50 and I look at the, these 18 to 30-year-old kids,
right,
they're going to be the new millennials.
Sometimes I'm really worried about society, man.
You and me both. But I mean, there's always going to be this millennial, this sort of there's the boomers, there's all this in between group that is sort of always there between the the sort of conservative old, and like you have like your adults, your old conservative types, and then you have like the voting group, the voters that are coming in. They're kind of the millennials, we call them now.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
in the year 3000, they're going to have a whole new breed of millennials.
No, it's good. It's good. So this guy, I'm fucking went to the Supreme Court in New York.
Only in the state level, so he didn't just.
Yeah, I know. But for people who don't know, the Supreme Court is the highest court in the jurisdiction. So in the state of New York, the Supreme Court of New York, quite rightly say, that is the highest court, right, in the jurisdiction, right, which is pretty impressive. And he was evicted, right? He was told to leave.
I can understand why they had to call upon the Supreme Court, because you're now arguing between, is he considered a dependent, so you can't evict him, but then he's also an adult.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, not that he like necessarily like invaded his parents' home and stayed there, but like, you know, if you live long enough with your parents at some point, you know, because it's, I think a big part probably played into was he moved back in with his parents.
Right.
It wasn't that he just kept staying there, because I think in cases where the kids keep staying there, you wouldn't hear about this probably.
Right.
There are individuals who live with their parents all the way until like 30 plus, you know?
Yeah. I mean, especially like I know in the Caribbean, for instance, that's very common. In fact, the grandparents, parents, children, and stuff like that, there are communities where they're all kind of in the same house.
But there's a reason for that, though, from what you've told me.
Yeah. Well, property is very expensive. So
right. It's not just because you guys are all a bunch of millennial losers.
Correct. There's a cultural element. There's an economic element to it. And I mean, I see it even in, you know, some parts of the U.S. It's kind of becoming an issue because, again, property prices are pretty high, and you know, kids are staying with their parents longer. You know, and then that's economics, you know.
Yeah, there's a lot of that, and it used to be. I mean, me growing up, it was like 8. You know, at least, I mean, I wasn't 18 yet, but I mean, even when I was like 12, I'd hear about the whole, like, when you turn 18, you move out. Well, for the people who were turning 18 at that point, that was probably more feasible.
Right.
My generation now, I mean, if, you know, anyone who's turned 18 and is like, you know, right now, summer's coming up, most people are still going to be living with their parents. You know, and stuff. And that's just normal. You know, kids aren't really moving out. I mean, it's either they get a really good job and move out on their own right out of college, or they get married,
right,
and move into an apartment or a house with someone.
Right.
You know, there's people that I know, men and women that are my age, still living with their parents, classmates, and they move out when they get married. You know, more and more of them as time goes on getting married, but it's becoming more accepted because they're not really seeing it as like, you know, you can't make it in the world. They're seeing it as just times are different. You have to figure things out.
Yeah.
You know, but in this case, this
hardly not.
No, he moved back in when he was 22. So I'm guessing he just got out of college, moved back in with his parents, and never left. And then
there we go.
So,
did you watch the interview? I don't know if you saw the interview with the.
No, I didn't. Let me see here.
It's pretty cringe. Like, I started watching it,
right,
and I don't know if the guy is high or if he's stupid, or, you know, I don't know. I watched like the first couple seconds of it, and it's like, no, I can't even watch this. This man can't really like form coherent sentences.
I'm gonna try something here.
Are you gonna see if you could to show it?
Okay.
Are you running OBS?
No, I'm not.
Okay. I don't think it's gonna. The audio probably will not come through.
Well, one sec. Let me just. I got something.
Okay.
I got a thing.
You got a thing. Okay.
I got a thing. Let's see here.
All right, for anybody watching, this is surely under common use. We're using it as commentary. This is not stealing it for copyright issues. We're obviously commenting on the video. Okay, go ahead. He says, hi. And she's like, hi. I'm not hearing anything. Are you hearing anything?
And that did not work. Never
I thought
mind.
you had a thing, man. I thought you had a thing.
I thought I had a thing too. I had this app downloaded that was supposed to be a plugin to like incorporate the audio.
Right.
But yeah, it's a whole different thing. Anyways, it wasn't a thing.
Try. Anyway, we
Yeah,
will put
yeah.
links in the description below if anybody want to watch the interview.
Yep. But you can see he's not some guy that's like ready to get back into the world, at least just the demeanor, the way he looked, he dressed.
Yeah, he kind of looks a little bit like a basement dweller. I mean, I don't know his situation, but you know, that's how he kind of appeared to me. And he didn't seem to have a lot of social interaction skills, as you'll see in the interview. It's just cringe.
I mean, we've talked about this, how it's interesting that there are more basement dwellers, I think, than ever before.
Sure.
and it's interesting how the social skills are now lacking among a lot of people.
I agree.
And it's not just the basement dwellers, but also anyone who's on their phone all day.
Correct.
But
I mean, in a lot of ways, I think we might be better off without smartphones and social media being as prevalent as it is today. Like one of the guys that trained me in my portfolio management, he doesn't have a smartphone. He has like a dumb phone that could just text and stuff like that. And he did a video on YouTube about get rid of the smartphone. Like, it's consuming your time. It's a parasite. If you want to be productive and get ahead, get rid of the smartphone, and I can't say he's wrong, at the end of the day. I mean, it's tough, but yeah, I think he's onto something there. And especially the social degradation that has taken place where people can't even really talk to each other anymore. That's an issue.
I think there could be something they could change the way phones are if we had if they really went forward with the whole Google Glass thing.
Right, okay.
And really capitalize on it, basically. Instead of making the phone sort of this separate thing we go to,
right,
that removes us from reality, we create something that is integrated into, augmenting to our reality. So we can we're allowed to like go about our day.
Right.
And still engage in these things. So, there could be an issue with the multitasking part.
Yeah, I think so.
But where it's in front of us instead of where we have to look down at it.
It's possible. However, I don't think that's practical in the sense, because no matter what, you can't really multitask, man. Like, as much as we're having a conversation here, if I were to open up Facebook behind this and start scrolling, this conversation is going to suffer. Yeah. So the truth is, you can't really interact with social media, even in an augmented reality position, and still have good reality skills. Something's gonna give.
Yeah, something's gonna give. I just there might be an incentive for cell phone companies to create some sort of interface that is more sort of as a complement to your world instead of a separate thing.
It's kind of hard to do.
I know. I'm just trying to see, like, because obviously cell phone companies aren't just gonna die.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there's no shortage of people trying to get rid. There's no market for people getting rid of their cell phones, right? Right. So that's a very small percentage.
But it is becoming enough of an issue where we're seeing some of the social issues arising out of the use of smartphones, that there might be some sort of an incentive for cell phone companies to re-engineer it somehow. I mean, you have like the smartwatch thing,
right?
Which where it's like you're not literally reaching into your pocket, pulling out this thing. You're just quickly flicking your wrist, seeing something, and you know.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
I don't know if that's still better.
no, yeah, I know. There could be something there where there could be a solution for them to
Possibly.
alleviate some of the social issues. But yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of along the lines of what was that? Steve Jobs would not let his kids play with an iPad. I mean, have you seen those articles?
Yeah, I heard
So
about
like,
that.
yeah, cognitive development and stuff like that. He didn't want them to have access to that kind of thing, and that, especially amongst teenagers, I think it's really challenging. Because I mean, if you're not on social media and you're not on Snapchat and all this other stuff, you're nobody, right? It's like, social ostracism begins online, right? So yeah, I mean, if the hookup culture is as easy as Tinder and it's all about getting a bunch of followers on Instagram and all this other kind of stuff, none of that is real, right? None of that is like substantive. And I think that's why, yeah, the young people, well, I mean, younger than you, like the teenagers now, yeah, they're really suffering. They're really suffering.
I've told people how I feel like, as much as we want to go and talk about what is it, every 20 years or so as a generation,
right?
Whereas in my opinion, every five, it's with the constant changes. I mean, I remember when the iPhone first came out, and now where we are right now with smartphones.
Sure.
That's like a whole generation in itself. Because now you have a whole generation that has never touched a rotary phone.
Sure.
You have a whole generation that has no idea what it was before the internet.
Yeah.
They
Don't
grew
even
up
know what
in
CDs, DVDs are.
floppy disks.
Cassettes.
VHS tapes and shit.
Yeah, they don't know anything about that.
And so they're coming in. So there's a gap between someone like me and someone like them. And I'm like, that, like the definition of a generation, I think is going to shrink.
Possibly.
You're gonna. I mean, it should at least shrink down to a decade because of the advancements. I mean, what is it going to be like in 10 years? Now there's going to be the generation that I'm pointing at. There's these kids that grew up in the internet, and now imagine the kids that are going to be born into a world where smartphones are as basic as as turning on a light.
Appliances, yeah, exactly.
As running water. It's just it's just a phone.
Yeah, exactly.
But
no, it's crazy. It's great. I don't know what it's going to look like in that space of time.
So I'll do this not so subtle segue into, since we're talking about progress.
Right.
Oh boy. So the new Han Solo movie is out. Did you hear about that?
It hasn't opened yet, right? I think it's the 25th, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, maybe for you it is. I think it's coming. Well, maybe it comes out tomorrow.
Let me just check that really quick. I'll just Google that.
But you've heard about this, right?
Yeah. I've been watching a lot of the hate on YouTube.
So the Han Solo Star Wars movie. Everyone that doesn't know that they're making a prequel to the Star Wars movies about sort of the origins of Han Solo, how he becomes a pilot, how he finds the Millennium Falcon, how he meets the Lando Calrissian.
Correct.
Who did you know? Lando's actually pansexual.
No, really?
I mean, it seemed to matter a lot.
Oh my God! What is the woman's name? It's Kerry Kennedy, I think, is the president of LucasArts Film, and she has totally screwed the Star Wars franchise with this nonsense.
So it says here, The Independent. Solo, a Star Wars story, shows us the hero all feminist men have been waiting for.
Yeah, this is some serious ass cancer.
This piece contains spoilers. Oh, well, spoiler alert, everyone.
Yeah, spoiler alert. We'll have to put it in the title of this thing just to be safe.
We have to. I don't care enough if I know the spoilers because of the movie.
Okay, are you going to see the movie?
I
Let's
probably
just,
will.
yeah, let's just have a brief synopsis on like where we stand on this whole Star Wars thing. So you're going to see it in cinema?
I'm probably gonna see it, but I don't care if I know about any spoilers.
Okay, so like you're not really invested or committed to this film.
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
I haven't even watched The Last Jedi yet.
Oh, bro, The Last Jedi was terrible.
Exactly. See?
It was. I mean, okay. Let me be fair. If it was just a standalone movie, I kind of enjoyed it. But in terms of the overall franchise, it is a fucking train wreck. It is just what they did to the character of Luke Skywalker is unforgivable. Right. Now, I wouldn't say anything more than that. I'm just saying that what they did to him was just total blasphemy, right?
I heard there was some major changes they put into him that didn't quite make sense. But I do understand
Correct.
that there was I mean, you had um so you had, The Force Awakens, which was kind of like just let's all jerk off the fans with our nostalgia
Yeah.
trip.
There
And I'm
hasn't been a
like,
movie in 10 years. Yeah, exactly.
and then I'm like, okay, it's kind of cool, whatever, do your thing. And then
You watched The Force Awakens.
I did.
Okay.
So then there
And
was
what
the
did you think
Force.
of it?
It was like, oh, like here's a nice way of feeling good about the movie, but not actually like enjoying much. Like it was
Right.
like um it's like seeing a Stan Lee cameo. It's
Okay.
funny, it's enjoyable, but it's nothing that you're really gonna like, say it's such a great movie. It's just
Yeah. Yeah.
so I'm like, okay, whatever. Then I see Rogue One, and I'm like, hey, main protagonist is a woman, but I mean, there's kind of a reason for it. You kind of play that out, and you go, okay, all right, I'll go for that. That's cool.
Right.
And then I hear Last Jedi. I start seeing the reviews on it, and then I'm just like, oh my god, no, no. So
Oh,
I'm like, no, we're not. No, I'm not touching this. So, anyways, I'm gonna spoiler it, everyone. I'm gonna start reading this. Unless do
all
you
right.
care?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay.
I'm probably not gonna
So
watch this.
so this piece contains spoilers. All right, we have to free half of the human race, the women, so that they can help free the other half. Wrote the
Yeah.
suffragette leader
Suffragettes.
Emmeline Pankhurst, but from a century ago. What?
Yeah, the suffragettes were the women that fought to get the vote.
We're quoting suffragettes in a article about the Star Wars movie.
Well, it all plays in because the idea is, right, this is modern feminist thinking, that once you liberate women from the kitchen and gender stereotypes, then you could liberate men from gender stereotypes. So they don't have to be, strong, masculine. Basically, they can stop being what they are and they can now, partake in other roles, such as being better women than women and other such things. So that's the that's the thinking of feminist theory.
All right, so many men still don't realize that the revolution of feminism was fought as much for their freedom as for anybody's. Oh, so it's
Yeah,
my freedom.
yeah.
Instead, they seem to want the bad old days of patriarchy back. So, oh wait, patriarchy's not a thing nowadays. Then see,
Right. Apparently not.
there is no patriarchy.
So
Hollywood keeps telling these men the same old story that they adore. A middle-aged guy, divorced from his family, rediscovers his purpose by rescuing his daughter's wife, sister, other vulnerable female stereotype from evil terrorists. It's every action movie taken from Bruce Willis's Die Hard to Liam Neeson's Taken.
and those movies have done very well, by the way, which means there are a lot of men that resonate with this storyline.
And why is that? Like, why would a bunch of middle-aged divorced men do that? Because I mean, here's the thing though. If half of all marriages end in divorce, this part is true, is relevant. There are plenty of middle-aged men out there, and rediscovering purpose. That's just called a midlife crisis.
Correct. I mean, yeah, it's what made 24 so popular. I mean, all of these movies, it's the same thing. It's very much based in the reality. So,
right. But even most men's very particular set of skills is more along the lines of coding JavaScript or scheduling a badass middle management meeting with assassinating bad guys. Assassinating bad guys. We still love the fantasy. One day we will get to fulfill the role of the heroic warrior for our family or tribe. The narrative goes. One day we will be needed again. Well, since when was a movie supposed to be about code? Could you imagine a movie about a middle-aged man using his certain set of skills to use JavaScript and scheduling a badass middle management meeting, and that's the whole movie?
That'd be pretty shit.
It'd be a shit movie. Movie is all about telling a story and engaging the audience on an adventure that you don't usually get in real life. That's how movies.
Correct.
There are movies. It's escapism. What is wrong with a man watching a movie about a man being a manly man? He might never be a manly man or on that level, but it's still fun for him to watch, and it makes money.
Correct.
Hollywood doesn't care. Hollywood's trying to incorporate all these narratives to try to, demean being manly, but at the same time, they're still making these movies.
Yeah, this brings me to the point about. What made the original Star Wars franchise brilliant was that it dealt with big themes, and it was the journey of a young boy, talking about episode 4 to 6. The young boy, Luke Skywalker, on his journey to becoming a man and confronting good and evil, right? It's a tale as old as time. It is basically the King Arthur legend and the Knights of the Round Table sort of thing, right? And these stories are ingrained in our psyche, right? So their attempt to try and change these things, and again, because you haven't seen The Last Jedi and seen how they're attempting to transform this stuff, there's a whole story arc within The Last Jedi that's completely fucking pointless, right? It's again, because I don't want to give too much away, but there's a whole tangent that takes place that results in nothing. It just falls flat on its face. And it's basically a feminist narrative, the bravado man is doing shit, and you need the rational woman who is more informed than all this kind of thing to kind of save the day, sort of thing. So
right. I can't help it, but I'm almost trying to hear Jordan Peterson in the background. It's all about the art, the archetypes and the mythos.
Yeah. Right. So they go out of their way to shit on the archetype of the masculine, the swashbuckling type, like the Han Solo type. In the new series, it's Poe Dameron or whatever his name is. He's supposed to be the masculine alpha male type. And they do an entire scene. It's like a good few minutes where they just go off on this tangent, completely pointless, and it's to shit all over the masculine character. Absolute horseshit. And they're doing that with this as well, right? So as you continue to read the article, it's all about Han Solo is so free, he lives on the fringes because he's a smuggler, and he's not living up to anybody's norms, he's just doing what he wants to do. It's yeah.
So in the midst of all this, it's good to see a different kind of masculine archetype. Different kind. Okay. It's a screen in Solo, Star Wars, sorry. A film which is primarily about a man learning to embrace his own freedom. As the first Star Wars movie of Disney era is not to feature... no. Shit.
Oh, they've committed blasphemy by not having a female protagonist.
In a franchise that has so much to say about freedom, there is an implicit expectation that Solo should have something to say about male liberation. Han Solo was the character we all really all of us now, all of us,
Yeah.
really fell in love with in the original Star Wars, and not just because of Harrison Ford's natural charisma. Luke Skywalker is a one-dimensional cipher driven by destiny and the selective truth-telling of Obi-Wan Kenobi along his hero's journey. Well, that's the hero's journey.
Correct. I mean, that's the whole fucking story.
But
That
Han is a free human being. When he flies the Millennium Falcon in to rescue Luke, he is a hero not by fate, but by choice. Well, yeah,
yeah, I mean
but like,
that's
why is that such? That's not so groundbreaking as I think it is.
it's
I mean,
not. It's basically every Lord of the Rings, it's every Harry Potter movie. You know, Gandalf basically comes in at the end and saves the day in thing. It's not an original story. It's not an original theme, right? Every movie. I did some screenwriting courses and stuff like that, and every movie follows the same plot. And at the end of it, for it to really feel real, you've got to have like that feeling of imminent demise, and then you have
yeah,
the conclusion, right? Yeah.
that's like
So that's nothing new.
yeah. Han's
Yeah,
life as a
Hunger Games,
smuggler.
all of them.
Han's life as a smuggler mirrors his primary character traits. He is the epitome of the free man. He lives outside rules and hierarchies, and however hard they try, the evil empire can't catch him. Even when Jabba gets a hold of him, his spirit of freedom is only frozen momentarily in carbonite. Han's families are the friends and even the enemies he meets on his adventures. An orphan farm boy, a prissy patrol droid, and a 200-year-old hairball aren't a traditional family, but they're the ad hoc family of friends many of us today embrace. Okay, all right. When family does find him, even Han Solo doesn't get to fly away from his failings as a father. Han is handy with a blaster, but he's a male of guile and cunning, not violence. He can't fight away the enemies who have his son because the enemies live within Ben Solo's character. Han can only, like a real man, keep being there for his fallen son, even when, as Kylo Ren, his son is making all the worst decisions a man can.
I mean, you're seeing it. You're seeing how now they've flipped the script, right? So at the first offset of this thing, Han Solo is a man of freedom. You know, he's given away on the archetype. You know, he's rebelling against the Empire and all this good stuff. But then later on, it's like, yeah, but he's standing by his wayward son as he should do, right? So he's basically fallen back in to the archetype,
Yeah.
right?
You certainly suspect he would be one of those enraged hysterical followers of Jordan Peterson. Oh my God. Are you serious? They did this.
Yeah, they did. Oh my God.
Morose YouTube ramblings about reclaiming masculinity. No, not the alt-right.
Yeah, Jordan, and for the record, Jordan Peterson is not alt-right.
At least Snoke is a charismatic villain who will take as a master. Why do these young men see in a depressed? What the fuck?
Yeah, this is as you see.
What? Then it turns into talking about enforced monogamy. What?
Yeah, so they've taken the whole Jordan Peterson thing about how we should enforce monogamy.
Here we're gonna talk about, we're gonna talk about Han Solo, the Millennium Falcon, and blah, blah, blah.
And you see, that's it,
Jordan
right? So
Peterson.
Because Han Solo is kind of, the scoundrel, sleeps around, and all this other kind of, they praise him for his non-traditional roles, which are not necessarily good things, right? At the end of the day, not being, however you want to slice it, the best institution of a family is still mom, dad, and kids married in a household. While that unfortunately doesn't always work out for whatever reason.
Well, Luke Skywalker is sort of Luke Skywalker is freaking Spider-Man. Lives with his aunt and uncle.
Right.
Has all these abilities he doesn't know about. Has this mysterious past. Anyways, and then you have Han Solo is basically the anti-hero.
Correct.
So he's not really a hero. He's the anti-hero, which is the guy that has basically had such a fucked up life, but for the sake of the story, kind of turns good and redeems himself through the process. And to see a character like that, I think, is good for like a series of movies. But when you're trying to revitalize it in The Force Awakens, in The Last Jedi, or even the Han Solo movie. They're actually the Han Solo, the solo, Star Wars story movie. Technically it is supposed to be a prequel to Han Solo's appearance in The Empire Strikes Back.
Correct.
But I think the narrative they're painting it is as a continuation after The Force Awakens. So they're redefining a character after he's already been defined.
Yeah, so, that's going to be tricky. I didn't hear that slant on it.
But what I'm saying is see, from Empire Strikes Back to the last of the first three movies, he was sort of the anti-hero redeeming himself.
Correct.
Which is good for that just that plot. It's like this stretch, he's good. We've used him. He's been utilized. End of story. Sure. But then you have episode 1, 2, and 3, and you're kind of like, okay, they want to do that. That's fine. And then you have The Force Awakens. Oh, let's bring him back.
Yeah.
It's like, well, the anti-hero's done.
Right. But you can't say that the fans were not curious as to what happened.
Yeah, obviously the fans are curious, but I'm saying is
sure. Yeah, and this is why
you introduce a new anti-hero,
which they didn't.
But here's the thing. So they continue him, and they're basically reshaping him. Now he's this father figure, then he dies. And then it's like, now let's do a prequel about him where, in terms of the writing, they're following the same line. They're not like, let's go back to forming how he becomes the anti-hero. It's more so, let's continue him on and try to redefine his origins.
Right.
Now he's like, it's at least this is what this article is kind of showing. Like, Solo the movie is a feminist, male feminist thing, and I'm like, what? There was no male feminism in the Empire Strikes Back.
Correct. And this is what it comes down to, that they're trying to portray him as, yes, like the rebel without a cause. He can't be contained. He's doing his own thing, whatever. Probably very promiscuous and all that kind of stuff. And they're celebrating all of these things. But like rightly you said, those aren't necessarily virtues that we should be celebrating, right?
Yeah.
This is the anti-hero. So, yes, he turns out to do good things, but technically he's a bad guy, right?
Right.
And they're romanticizing that whole thing. And I think that's going to have issues with this story, amongst all the other issues they've had with this story. So we shall see.
But so I'm gonna kind of, I guess, summarize the last bit. It's basically the writer starts going on this whole thing about Jordan Peterson.
Yeah, he totally tangents away from the story,
and then at the very end talks about Jordan Peterson's YouTube show. I'm like, is this a hit piece on Jordan Peterson, or are we talking about a movie?
And you see, this is the problem. I don't know how many of our viewers or anybody is aware of the controversy surrounded in Solo, right? Since the treatment of The Last Jedi, the fans are pissed, right? They basically feel like, I think her name is Kathleen Kennedy. I might be wrong. She's the president of LucasArts. Yeah, she's basically shat all over the legacy of George Lucas, extended her middle finger to the fans, and quite frankly, she doesn't understand the source material, and she's put directors and other people who are not fans of the movie, who know very little about the movies, just to create a vision, right? That's kind of the sense that people are getting. So when it came to Solo, there were 2 directors that were fired over creative differences. There was the introduction of this self-built robot that's all about droid rights, which is it's going to be some kind of transsexual, message or whatever.
Trans robot.
Yeah, something like that. And then again, you're seeing this almost SJW creep that is coming in. So Lando Calrissian is going to be pansexual, and all of this other kinds of stuff. And again, this the avenue of using Star Wars to push a political agenda, feminism in The Last Jedi, and it looks like all other types of SJW cancer in Solo, the fans aren't having it.
Yeah.
So there's actually like an organized campaign to not go and see this movie, to hopefully kick Disney in the nuts, you know?
Telling you, man. You never know. Maybe Han Solo has that Jabba the Hutt kink.
I mean, it's such nonsense. Like, if you listen to the interviews of these people, right? They talk about, oh, well, what Star Wars needed was a strong feminine character. As if Princess Leia did nothing. Like, if Princess Leia didn't single-handedly strangle Jabba the Hutt, right?
You don't know what it's like. He still had to get rescued.
Right.
It's like, yeah, she got rescued and she became a general in The Force Awakens.
Exactly. And I mean, it would, like, as I say, the character of Lando, there's been all types of diversity and other things in Star Wars long before all of this social justice nonsense. But you know, again, they're spinning this narrative. And I mean, if and when you see the Jedi, the Last Jedi, you will see how fucking much of this SJW horseshit has been shoveled into this 2 hours and whatever minutes. And again, they have characters just for the sake of diversity that serve no fucking purpose. None.
Virtue signaling.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, you're seeing it. You're seeing, like, there's a guy that I watch on YouTube every so often because he tracks the toys of like these movies, you know. So like Avengers has come out, everybody's got the toys and stuff like that. And he took a walk through, I guess, Walmart, Toys R Us, a couple of the major chains in the US. And he basically showed the amount of Star Wars memorabilia that has been on the shelves for over 2 years. Because, you know, the last movie, you know, since Rogue One, you know, they've had movies come out. It's not selling. And the things that are not selling is all of these virtue signaling characters, these women for women's sake and black man for black man's sake, and no fucking point to them whatsoever. Even the lead character, though, which is Rey, you know, which we saw in the Force Awakens, no fucking point to her character at all.
You know what's interesting?
What's that?
The opposite was so strongly true on. So everyone, like, obviously, you know, the fans kind of hated Episode 1.
Yes.
But what's hilarious, Jar Jar created solely for the purpose of toys, and he sold like crazy.
Yeah. My girlfriend,
they created a character. So here you have nowadays you have Star Wars characters created for the purpose of virtue signaling.
Correct.
Versus not so long ago, Star Wars characters created for the sole purpose of toys.
Yeah, exactly. Like my girlfriend loves Jar Jar. Me and her have issues over this, but you know, but I mean, I'm not a diehard fan, right? I'm not. I don't give a shit.
Because now probably the most popular toys has to be something like Jar Jar, Darth Vader, the Bounty Hunter, Boba Fett, and maybe Luke.
Yeah, like this is what the guy did. The same guy I told you about who does all the toys following. All of the original characters, their action figures are sold out. So Han, Leia, Luke, even Yoda, and Yoda didn't even make an appearance except in the last movie. Darth Vader and stuff like that. That stuff is selling. And all of the virtue signaling, was it Tycho, Finn, whatever, Ray, and all. Nobody cares. Nobody cares about any of those people.
Here we go. That's funny. So the most popular Star Wars toys of all time, they're all like they're the first Star Wars movies.
Yeah, of course.
And it's funny, number 49, Commander Jorg Sackle, or it's basically a George Lucas rebel fighter.
Oh, okay, cool.
But you look, it's all
yeah, it's gonna be Luke, C-3PO.
Let me see the top 10. Top 10. Here we go.
Yeah, go ahead.
Princess Leia, BB-8, okay.
Right.
Darth Vader's TIE Fighter.
Yeah.
Kyber Light lightsaber, so it's big lightsabers. Jabba's Rancor playset.
Right.
The pit. Ewok Village playset,
Yeah.
Farm Boy Luke Skywalker, AT-AT, Millennium Falcon, #1 Boba Fett.
That's the top 10 toys, right?
Of all time, yeah.
Of all time.
Yeah, so it's basically the AT-AT, the Millennium Falcon, Boba Fett, and and Luke Skywalker is in the top 5. So it's actually not even characters. I mean, you have like Princess Leia, but it's Princess Leia. So really, you want to talk popular female protagonist toys, popularity. Correct. Princess Leia. It's not Rey.
Correct.
It's not.
Yeah, it's not Rey. So you haven't seen the other one. So there's another character called Tycho. Totally pointless. Nobody gives a shit about Finn. Our token black guy.
Finn was okay in The Force Awakens, kind of. I mean,
yeah, everybody's okay.
I like the interesting story about So I guess they talked about someone tried explaining it to me, why was there a black stormtrooper? Did you hear about this?
No, I didn't hear about this.
Well, Rogue One, so they destroy that array. The array apparently had basically all the information they needed on the clone army.
Right.
All the research, all the stuff they needed to clone more soldiers. Well, because they didn't have that, they had to start from scratch.
Okay.
So Finn was basically a remnant of the next generation of stormtroopers, which were shit compared to the clones. Because the clones, they could basically brainwash and make them subservient, whereas people like Finn had to be regular people that they picked up and brainwashed, and that's why he was having such a struggle, because he wasn't designed for that. He was a regular guy, so it wasn't this is all that. So that's their explanation, but really, I mean, then it comes down to, well, we need a black man.
pretty much. And I mean, I'm not saying the characters aren't okay.
Right.
I'm just saying that's the problem.
That's the thing. They're just okay.
Exactly. And when you see the next one, when you see Return of Last Jedi. Oh my God. I mean, I physically face palmed a couple of times. Now, as I say, as a standalone movie, I'll be like, okay, it's just a space opera, but there's so many problems with it. And I say, if I wasn't thinking Star Wars and I just said, okay, this is a space movie, it'll be okay. I don't mind what they've done. But overall, on the franchise, they've just destroyed it. And you'll see it. You'll see that there's no point. Even the lead character, right, Rey, who was supposed to care all this much about, no point. There's what is she? She's just drifting through the movie. Yeah, it's so the fans are pissed, and of course, Disney is actually preparing for this to do pretty badly. So since the Last Jedi, the domestic sales and the international sales took a pummeling, they took it in the ass, right? When The Force Awakens came out, it was $2 billion. I think it was a 700 million domestic and 1.2 billion international, whatever. So it was a $2 billion franchise. Rogue One came out and there was a drop off, and I think it only did maybe $1 billion, just about crossed $1 billion. And then they came out with The Last Jedi, and it had a strong opening weekend, but I don't think it topped The Force Awakens or Rogue One, which had none of the vintage characters. So that should be worrying. And yeah, Solo is probably going to be more horseshit.
Speaking of horseshit, so one of the things we really wanted. Did you watch the entire debate with Jordan Peterson?
No, I couldn't. I really couldn't. It was not. I couldn't listen to the other side.
So we're gonna talk about a little bit about this. Those of you who are keeping up with Jordan Peterson, he was in a debate, the Monk debate. So I guess it's some sort of a
free thinking tank.
Yeah, some think tank thing. So they basically stated on, is political correctness good? So there's an agree or disagree. Well, with Jordan Peterson and Stephen Fry on the disagree side, with Mike Tyson and
Dyson.
Dyson. It was like clicking in my head, Mike. Let's see. What was her name? I mean, that's
and puppet number 2. Like nobody cares what this woman's role is.
Okay. What's her name again?
That's exactly right. Nobody cared who she was. She didn't do anything.
Oh, here we go. Michael Eric Dyson, Michelle Goldberg. That's right.
There we go.
So Michelle Goldberg is basically a blogger. She straight up just says, "Yeah, I'm a blogger." Mike Dyson is like a former preacher, I think.
Is he a preacher? I thought he was some kind of pseudo academic.
No, you said he was a preacher, so
okay.
Probably one of those like Al Sharpton types. So there's him and her basically on the agreeing that PC culture is good. Well, PC is good, not PC culture. Stephen Fry and Jordan Peterson on the disagree, and so they debated for about an hour and a half.
About an hour and a half, yeah.
Basically, they were asked to give some opening remarks. Eventually, it got to the point where, so it was pretty civilized in the beginning. But I mean, it turned into, instead of talking about the pros and cons of PC, it turned into talking about identity politics. And I think Stephen Fry actually made a really interesting point throughout the thing. He goes, so back on the topic, so since we're here to talk about political correctness, he said that like 5 or 6 times because
yeah.
Actually, Mike Dyson turned it into a identity politics debate.
Correct.
And Jordan Peterson's like, well, I guess we're talking about this. Yeah. And a lot of people actually cheered Stephen Fry to like call it out. Like, you guys are talking about, so he goes, we can talk about this, but this isn't why we're here.
Correct.
So then it just kept going and going and going. And basically it got to the point where Mike Dyson called Jordan Peterson a mean, mad white man.
Yeah.
Which is perfectly professional. And of course he's talking about like, Jordan Peterson should go to a Black Baptist church, go to an Aborigine settlement with him and stuff. And then Jordan Peterson's like, well, I'm actually an honorary member of a tribe.
Yeah, he can't say anything.
You don't know
anything about me.
You don't know anything about me, that whole thing. So I actually listened to the whole thing. And
my God. I couldn't. Mike Dyson has got to be one of the most supernaturally annoying voices on the planet. And
right,
yeah, I've tried to listen to what he said, but he didn't say anything, and that's what I hate. I hate people who use all this flutter of words to say nothing.
Exactly, and yeah, it got to such a point for me too. I as I listened, you could see Jordan Peterson just very tired of the whole thing.
Yeah.
Because it immediately turned into talking about, white privilege and playing the race card, and Jordan Peterson's this angry white man. I mean, even Mike Dyson kind of he tried turning like he tried like getting some ground. There's actually a part where he makes a comment to Stephen Fry, because Stephen Fry is gay, so we know that.
Yeah,
openly gay. And Mike Dyson like makes a sort of a sarcastic little joke about like making a pass by him, and Stephen Fry's like, don't flatter yourself.
Right.
So because I think he was trying to kind of like, hey, if I can't win over the mean man, white man, let me try to win over Stephen Fry over here. And Stephen Fry's like, yeah, Stephen Fry's like, no, we're not doing this.
I didn't see that. That would have been good. I have to watch some more highlights.
And then of course this Michelle Goldberg woman, you don't even hear, but you don't even remember her.
Yeah, I mean, that was the little bit I did see. And I mean, I haven't watched the whole thing, but I watched all the highlights, and I did notice that she was blatantly absent, right?
She would talk about things, but I mean, her perspectives weren't. There wasn't anything to really make them stick. So it was really just Jordan Peterson and Mike Dyson going at it.
Right.
Stephen Fry trying to be a bit of a voice of reason to like bring the topic back to where they were supposed to be talking about. Mike
Right.
Dyson wanting to talk more about race. Jordan Peterson obliging him and just being real that this is a bunch of horseshit.
Yeah. Yeah. Basically.
And so more content for memes, I guess.
I mean,
Seeing people.
I haven't seen too many memes come out of this though. I mean,
Well, no, I'm just saying is it's more from the world of memes. It's just more content out there of Jordan Peterson going at it with some some pseudo intellectual person. More stuff to talk about. More material to better understand Jordan Peterson's position on different issues. And how, I mean, because this debate, I mean, to have a debate in this sort of think tank environment, you'd think that you would have like reputable individuals there,
right.
like people that can, I mean,
Substantive.
yeah, smart.
I guess
But
you're
you
trying
just
to
you had two SJWs versus a guy that didn't really even care to be there. If you really, I mean, Stephen Fry is there, and he's he loved being there, and you could tell it's an honor for him. But in reality, I think he kind of gave off the feel that he just like at some point he was just like, well, I guess I'm just here,
right.
And Peterson is just kind of like the way he talks, the way he moves, he's very comfortable doing what he does. And just because he gives off confidence, because he has such a presence, Mike Dyson even like kind of shit on that a little bit.
Right.
So Mike is kind of like, well, I'm a preacher, so I'm going to stand behind this podium. And it's like, oh, well, okay, fine, do your thing. Yeah. And then Peterson comes out and walks in the middle of the stage in front of all of them because that's what he's comfortable with.
Right, exactly.
And then Mike Dyson goes, well, I'm going to come out here in Jordan Peterson land. And he starts walking around, and I'm like, really, dude? Are you that threatened by the mean, mad white man walking around talking?
I didn't see any of that. That must have been coming down to the end.
No, it was in the beginning. They were kind of every speaker was kind of trying out different means of speaking. So you started off like, and then Stephen Fry's kind of like joking around. He's like, well, I'm just gonna walk back here. So he gets behind the podiums and kind of talks back there.
Right. Okay.
It was just so in a way it was kind of like, hey, everyone's fucking around and two guys are really taking it seriously, but one of them's stupid.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the little I did see, I saw the highlights. Like I said, I tried to watch the whole thing. I didn't have the hour and a half or whatever time it was, and I couldn't get through like the first couple minutes of the bloviating and stuff. But I seem to have come into it after all of that because they were already kind of into the debate. Yeah,
there was a part in there. So someone actually someone like analyzed the way Mike Dyson talked. So Mike Dyson was basically Black Russell Brand.
Right. Yeah, that's a good analogy.
The words, the
mannerisms,
the word salad, the look at me, I sound so smart because I can say all these words and lay out all these things and
somebody please come and rub my cock for how smart I am.
And so someone analyzed the language he used and basically wrote up sort of a closing remark off camera of Mike. It's a parody of Mike Dyson talking. Like they're just laying out all these words. I'm like, none of this makes any sense, but it sounds so much like something he would say.
Have you seen? I don't know if you saw this guy, Gad Saeed. He's a professor of I think clinical evolutionary biology or something like that. And he did a critique of Mike Dyson, going onto Twitter, basically saying, "Give me a statement that only Mike Dyson would say, for every letter of the alphabet. So you got to reuse the letter A a couple times, the B a couple times, and you've got to include the word white and black in it somehow. So he literally got like well, not every letter, but a lot of people came up with these great structured sentences that don't say anything. It's just like rambling words.
How do you spell his name?
I think it's GAAD, SYAD, or AID. Might be one of those.
Likes. Sorry, say his name again.
Gad Said, GAAD. I think that's it.
Gad.
I might have to look it up.
SAID.
Could be. One second. Where did I see that? Yeah, he's been kind of blacklisted on Twitter for a bit. Let me see if I can find it. Oh, okay. Sorry. It's Gad Said, GAD SAAD. That's it.
Here we go.
Yeah. So he did one dissecting the rhetoric of Michael Eric Dyson A to Z.
This is who I watched. Yeah.
Oh, is it? Yeah, he's a good guy.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the video where I saw where it was like he basically said, caught off camera, Mike Dyson makes these statements. Right. And it's just
yeah, we'll put a link to it in the description.
Yeah. That's funny. Yeah, I think I've heard of or seen Mike Dyson before. He looks so familiar. I think I've seen, when I saw him, I was like, I think I've seen this guy somewhere before. But yeah.
I mean, you wouldn't know where you'd hear from him.
No, I mean, if you're not in those circles, you just wouldn't know. But but if somehow he's come across in other. Oh, you know what? Maybe he's been on Bill Maher.
Oh yes, he has. He has been on Bill Maher. Your guy Owen Benjamin did like a critique of the debate. I might take a listen to that. I think I have seen him on Bill Maher, and I know he's been criticized heavily by another guy. I think Cornel West. He's kind of like a black academic, kind of liberation thinking theology sort of thing, and he doesn't particularly like Dyson at all. He's like, we got to pray for that Negro,
That ain't right.
yeah, it's pretty crazy. And I mean, what I did is after I watched the debate, I went on Twitter and I put in the search parameters to see what kind of responses. And I'm glad to say there was a lot of criticism of Dyson and his word salads that don't really amount to a hill of beans. But I mean, a few people actually thought the man was like scoring points. I was like, what?
No points. Just no.
I think did some black guy do something?
Possibly.
He might have done something, and the black conservative did something, and it wasn't all favorable. It was very much like, the guy raised some points that might need discussing, but he didn't really address anything meaningful, kind of thing,
And yeah, that is the case. Is when you talk about these issues, you talk about inequality, you talk about racism. They're not issues that they're not like non-issues.
Yeah, they don't exist in a vacuum,
but no one talks about it properly. Right. So when the left is claiming to stand up for the oppressed, and they're trying to even Peterson understands there is a balancing act. Conservatives and liberals each play a role. Leftists and right wingers play a role in society. They're a balancing act.
Sure.
But when one of them is more prone to hysteria and being subjective, no one cares about those issues anymore.
Correct.
The reason, like, there is racism in America.
Sure.
It's just not being talked about properly.
Right.
So that's the issue.
I mean, if your first argument about racism is slavery, which, you know, is abolished over 100 years ago, of which nobody in America is a slave, and nobody in America is, at least in public life, a slave owner, you don't really have an argument, right? I mean, you're doing this whole thing. So when Dyson went off onto this claptrap about, you know, if you've been denied the existence for hundreds of years because of slavery, and you don't have access to the opportunities or the institutions to make your expressions, and blah, 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 blah. It's like, but here you are, you know, with all of that, you're on stage in front of this audience with Jordan Peterson and everybody else who you think is like so superior. You are on the stage. You are the very presence to disprove your position.
Right.
Yeah. And again, no, as you say, nobody is being honest and talking about these issues rationally.
Peterson will at least address like income inequality. He'd be like, yeah, inequality is a thing, and here's how you solve it: war, famine, revolution.
Yeah, no, I mean, he's on point. It's like inequality is the natural byproduct of any advanced, you know, free market society. And in the places where they've tried to do it the most, like the most equality, which has been some of the Scandinavian countries, he says, well, look, the evidence points to there's more inequality, right? When people are allowed to be free to pursue their own interests, they naturally drift off into professions that create a bigger divide.
Right.
So, yeah, it's interesting times, man. I really should get back to making some videos and commenting on some of this stuff.
You haven't made a video in a couple weeks now.
No. And my mom's DNA results have come in, so I might do a video about that. But yeah, it's a lot. I mean, I've just got back to the UK. Well, about 3 weeks now. Still kicking the jet lag. It's really holding on. I was fighting a cold. So yeah, there's a lot of things going on. I'm now kind of getting back into the groove, you know.
Whole lot of partying. What?
Yeah, there's a little bit of that. I've missed a lot too, so you know, got to make up for it.
With you, it's always making up for it.
Yeah, I've got a lot to catch up on, man.
It's either I've been gone, or I didn't party much when I was a kid, or no. To jet lag, and I'm just kidding.
Yeah, to it.
So yeah, all the links that we've talked about here for everyone watching is what we're going to actually put in the description for the article about the 30-year-old getting evicted, the Solo movie article, the
link to the debate,
as well as the little video by Gad Saeed, which is pretty funny.
Yeah. It's good. We got to include Hapa Supremacy. Did I mention that for something, or?
Well, we talked about them because
I think something we said we'll include their link, either them or somebody else.
Oh, the porn pass video.
The porn pass video, yeah.
We'll include that as well. So, follow both of us on social media. I am on Twitter at Amos Joe. Brook is at Brook_Potter.
Correct. With no E.
No E. Brook with a K.
Yeah, that's it.
And yeah, follow both of us on that. Subscribe to both of our channels. And hopefully Brook will put out a video. I'll put out a video. And yeah.
Let's do it, man. Let's get cracking, bro.
But we will see everyone next week. Follow us on here so we could we're gonna try to, I don't know if we're gonna get a guest. We're still figuring that out. So but yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Join us next week, same time, same place on the internet. Anything you want to say, Brook?
No, but everybody, thanks for watching. Be sure to boycott Solo if it is that you care about the franchise. I'm just kidding. Thanks for watching, guys. Be sure to connect with us on social media.